Hello, everybody, and welcome back to artofdino.com and saveearth.us. And I was looking through my collection of articles recently that I've saved. I'm always saving a bunch, and I found four that are kind of interconnected in an interesting theoretical way regarding the past resets. And I kind of feel like each one of these has a little bit of attributes and clues and hints towards the reset, and they're pretty random, and they're all from about 1845 to 1851. But I'll show you the articles. They're totally different, but they all deal with aspects of the past being a mystery and having a reset and having stories that continue that may not have been exactly the way they were, and kind of, because they can reword things in the future to tell about the past, and that can give the entirely wrong impression about what the past really was and what was happening. So it's almost like this is a collection of clues trying to figure out when and where the reset was happening back in the day. And it's to see what you think here. I thought these all connected in a very interesting way, and they're all totally different, and they're all very interesting and fascinating. So I'm going to start with one that's kind of the most bizarre, which I don't totally understand, but it's called Corpses Found on the Highways, and it's from an article in July 2nd, 1848. And so listen to this, because I don't know what this is from. I don't know where it is. I kind of think it's England or Ireland because of the names Clifton and Chancery. So Clifton has a castle in Ireland, and Chancery is kind of an English thing, but maybe they're all connected in this past way. But the story and the context of this I do not understand. But it has something to do, I think, with some form of reset. And I think each one of these articles do in their own right throughout different time periods. Maybe it was a gradual reset that just took place over generations, that was in order to reset or restore and replenish the history with a bunch of lies and lead people in the wrong directions. But either way, let me start with this article here, because I again don't know the context, but it happened in the 1840s, and something had to have been behind it. So listen to this. Corpses found on the highways. To these 40,000 and upwards, the victims of 5 months within the poorhouse, we have to add the countless thousands who died without, of whom we have no record, but of whose number we may form some idea from the facts stated before one of the masters in Chancery, that the bodies of 600, the inhabitants of one estate, were carted off and thrown coffinless into 2 pits near Bantry, in unconsecrated ground, the churchyards being already glutted with the dead, and from the fact reported by Mr. Tuke in his pamphlet that one quote-unquote inspector of the roads near Clifton has caused no less than 140 bodies to be buried, which he found scattered along the highway. In some cases, adds Mr. Tuke, it is well known that when all the other members of a family had perished, the last survivor has earthed up the door of his miserable cabin to prevent the ingress of dogs and pigs, and then laid himself down to die in this fearful family vault. So again, I do not know the context of this, but this to me sounds like a hunting of certain types of people that the people in control and in power had no care for. They threw them in coffinless into pits. There's some reason corpses found on the highways just strewn all over the place, over 40,000, and most of them had no names. And this is somewhere near England or Ireland, but what is the reason for this around the 1840s? Is this a war that's unknown? Is this just something? Is this the quiet reset, cleansing of these areas? They can do this stuff so easily under the radar of the news reporting, because they control it, so they don't have to report it. It never has to make it into history, and then it maybe comes out as these random kind of tales like this, where no one knows the context still, and people are just like, what the heck is going on? And maybe some certain people know the true context and the true nature of this type of thing, but in time they won't, and a lot of people would read this again and be kind of confused as to what is happening. But maybe living at that time, you would know. So I don't know. That's just one of those articles that I found. That's the shortest one and kind of the most random. But now for the next one in regards to the next form and aspect of the reset, which deals with curious facts and inventions. The steamboat, the locomotive, and the electric telegraph proved to be old inventions. So this is another thing, kind of showing that the things that we take for granted and all these high-tech things that we thought came out and were invented in the 1800s may have been existing in previous civilizations for countless generations, eons. Who knows? But then they are claimed to be invented in the 1800s, and nobody in the future knows any different. So again, this is a key aspect of the reset because it talks about how advanced technology was in the other parts of the world, which is one of the big massive lies that they do not want you to believe. They do not want you to think that amazing technologies occurred in the past, but they definitely did. So take a listen to this article right here from, let's see, where is this from? The Sunday Dispatch again, June 20th, my birthday, 1847. So here we go. The steamboat, the locomotive, and the electric telegraph proved to be old inventions. The present age is not so remarkable for its new discoveries as for turning old ones to a practical account. Our readers will be surprised when we tell them that neither of the above-named improvements are really the discoveries of the 19th century. The most recent of them, the electric telegraph, existed 60 years ago. The two others were known at least 168 years ago, and probably for a much longer period. And in regards to the telegraph and the electric thing, that's again using the ether and different things. So I guarantee they say it's only 60 years old from this 1840s thing, but imagine how old it really could be. Those ancient people that were building those ancient amazing buildings definitely had access and utilization of the ether. So keep that into account as well. They claim it's 60 years ago here in this controlled reset time, but much older. As you can see with the other inventions, you can tell they've been using these things for a long time. They were if it's a natural discovery, chances are a past civilization discovered it and utilized it, especially when you consider the fact that the Grand Canyon, the Himalayas, the Alps, the everywhere, they were all amazing ancient cities at time on our planet, in our realm. So you have to take those into account. You can't just say 60 years ago they discovered the ether and utilized it to send a couple words. They probably were doing that like crazy back in the day. Maybe even had that ability within their human bodies. Who knows? But here we go. All of these magnificent inventions, the grand levers of modern civilization, were in the 17th and 18th centuries only philosophical toys used to gratify curiosity. The first account we have so far as our researches extend of a locomotive or land carriage moved by steam and of a steamboat is in the history of the Jesuit missionaries in China and is as follows. Tartaria. In 1679, Chang He, Emperor of China, sent for two Jesuit missionaries, Grimaldi and Pereira, who gave him a general exhibition of the progress of European arts and sciences, among other curious things. Quote, they caused a wagon to be made of light wood, about 2 feet long, in the middle of which they placed a vessel full of live coals, and upon it a cola pile, a hydraulic instrument consisting of a hollow metalline ball with a slender neck or pipe. The ball being filled with water and exposed to the fire produces a strong blast of wind through the neck of the pipe. The wind produced by which discharged itself by a kind of wheel made like the sails of a windmill. This small wheel turned another, and by that means set the wagon in motion for 2 hours together. The same contrivance was likewise fixed to a little ship with 4 wheels. The cola pile, the boiler, was laid under the deck, and the steam acting upon the machinery made the ship wheel about for a long time. The works being concealed, nothing was heard but a noise like a blast of wind, or like that which water makes about a vessel. And that was from Payne's Universal Geography of Dublin, 1809. So again, they're talking about using steam in this way. And to me, again, when I hear about that, that to me sounds like they observed some people that had created a wind design, kind of a wind, but also a boiler. So they created that type of engine, steam-powered engine, and it looked like the ones that they saw were most likely kind of like home manufactured or manufactured by people in a later time that were basing it on something else that was much more advanced and much stronger. I could be wrong, but China's pretty big. Chances of these guys finding the people that invented that and seeing the first prototype is pretty impossible. You have to believe that this was come from a different time, or a different person had invented it that these guys just weren't able to meet in their little journey through a big place. But also, it makes me think that, again, since things get reset, China was definitely crushed. Tartaria, all that stuff happened around these times, or before these times. So it sounds to me, and I would like to assume that the invention was maybe something massive and used everywhere at one point in time, used for big ships, used for massive ships, used for all these things. And then the destruction came, the erasure, the reset came, or whatever, inevitably. And then people gradually started to remember. Maybe they found old tech and they tested it out and they were like, oh, I can do that and make it in a makeshift way. Whereas back in the day when things were advanced, the wall was being made, all these things, they definitely used technology to build the Great Wall of China, and so many of their boats, all of these things needed technology and things like this, steam power. And if you can use it to pump a little boat or a little cart, you're definitely going to be using it for so many other things too, and via construction and other materials. So just, again, take that into account. I find this interesting. And again, all these articles are from the controllers, so they don't ever tell you the truth. You have to think about it with a free mind. Here we go. It goes on. Here, in a state of curious perfection, was steam applied to the driving of machinery and the propulsion of what may be considered the germs of our fast-flying locomotives and our scarcely less rapid floating palaces. The cruise ships and all these things, and it definitely started somewhere. And again, these people in the 1700s were not the inventors. Ancient Egypt, definitely. Ancient Maya, definitely. When everyone lived on rivers, they were not. When all of civilization, massive advanced ancient civilizations, all lived connected to rivers, there is no doubt they were using more things than just manpower and paddles. There's no way. Absolutely impossible. So, again, use your imagination. It's most likely way more accurate than anything they will feed us. So here we go. The first idea of the electric telegraph is of a more modern date, and the proper credit of the idea is due, as will be seen, to a Frenchman. In the year 1787, Arthur Young, Esquire, Fellow of the Royal Society and a celebrated writer on agriculture, paid a visit to an ingenious French mechanic and inventor in Paris, Monsieur Lamonde, of whom he gives the following account. Quote, "In electricity, he has made a remarkable discovery. You write 2 or 3 words on a paper. He takes it with him into a room and turns a machine enclosed in a cylindrical case, at the top of which is an electrometer, a small fine pith ball. A wire connects with a smaller cylinder and electrometer in a distant apartment, and his wife, by remarking the corresponding motions of the ball, writes down the words they indicate, from which it appears that he has formed an alphabet of motions, like Morse code. As the length of the wire makes no difference in the effect, a correspondence might be carried on at any distance, within and without a besieged town, for instance, or for a purpose much more worthy and 1,000 times more harmless, between 2 lovers prohibited or prevented from any better connection. Whatever the use may be, the invention is beautiful." And again, was that an ancient invention that kept going? And you think about these distant civilizations that could do so much. Were they just when they're building a castle and they need tons of gold, are they just going to be like, okay, you buddy, go take a horse down to the gold factory 10 days away and come back with a bunch of things? They most likely had ways of, again, using the ether, using technology we can't even understand. And I am even willing to believe that this was all, again, part of the human machine at one point, the ability to connect thoughts and communicate differently immediately through the speed of time and thought, the speed of thought and ether, and that we've been able to do that because I feel like we still have remnants of that ability now. We just don't know how to access it, don't know how to use it, haven't been trained in it, and it's been so long out of practice. But again, I think these are very ancient creations from the advanced civilizations whom we see the ruins of all over this place and underneath our very feet, wherever you may be standing or sitting. So here we go. That's one article, the inventions, again, talking about the reset and where these things came from. They possibly came from other things, but they're telling you that they all came from this time period. That is key. They lie, and they want you to feel important and very special, that this is the best. You are the best. You are the top notch of humanity in this present moment. They want us to feel that way because they know we are not. And we have come from someplace amazing and ancient amazingness that they do not want to share with us, and they will do everything to cover it up. So here we go. Next article is from the Sunday Dispatch again, June 18th, 1848, and it is about gardens in St. Petersburg. So take a listen to this. So again, I also feel like our humanity is getting closer to, I feel like after that last reset, we started from scratch. We were almost slaves. People were working at age 3. Kids were just being tossed around like they were Cabbage Patch Kids, and they were useless, and they were creations and not really as precious. I feel like nowadays parents are realizing, again, how precious the miracle of life is, and how just absolutely amazing it is, and how you wouldn't discipline it. You shouldn't be putting it to work. You should be honoring its innocence and coveting it, and cherishing the moments you spend with these the future, the miracles of life. And so I have a feeling again that during this time in St. Petersburg, they had a similar thing happening, because we feel now, we see the chemtrails in the sky, and they're tossing nanobots at us. They're tossing poisons, diseases, chemicals, metals, all different kinds of nastiness. Disgusting. They don't care about nature. They are trying to destroy the life from all levels, from the smallest of bacteria that they can't use, good bacteria, to the biggest of humans and animals. They want us all dead. So that, I think, in the past was not the case. And we are fighting it now, and we are coming back to the realizations, like I've always said, that, we should be, instead of dumping poison on everyone, why not dump seeds? Why not spray misty, beautiful water on things, mist areas that need things, put little forms of bacterial life, or spread dragonfly seeds over mosquito covered area. Do dragonfly eggs or different things that are beneficial. But either way, even leaving all that aside and just doing seeds, wildflower seeds, wild fruit seeds that people can eat, edible things, that should be spread everywhere. Gardens should be growing up all over the place with fruits and vegetable edible things. That should be an absolute top priority. And at this point in St. Petersburg, in the distant past, before that reset, that terrible reset that changed everything into garbage, that's what it seems like. So take a listen to this. Sunday Dispatch, June 18th, 1848. St. Petersburg, about 1/7 part of the city, is laid out in flower and pleasure gardens. And again, 1/7, that's a beautiful amount of a city to be in flowers. And nowadays, there's probably 1/millionth of a city is looking nice, and the rest is just garbage. So here we go. About 1/7 part of the city is laid out in flower and pleasure gardens, and 7 millions of square meters of land are devoted to meadows and kitchen gardens. Think of that. Kitchen gardens. Places where people can just go to pluck food, and places that, people respect. You wouldn't find, I'm sure they didn't have people destroying the kitchen gardens at night when they're drunk and laughing about it, or people spraying all the kitchen gardens with toxic chemicals so that people eat it and slowly die and develop cancer. They weren't doing these things in these time periods. This evil that we face now is a very unique evil in a very interesting time period, and it has to be crushed. We have to remember where we came from and what these beautiful civilizations did, so that we can guide ourselves back to that. So here we go. Meadows and kitchen gardens. The elevation of the city above the Baltic, being 18 meters, permits the warmth of summer to penetrate the soil deeper and renders it more suitable for many flowers and leguminous plants. They were growing beans and things all over the place. In 1714, Peter the Great founded for botanical study the superb garden in the island of Apothecaries. Afterward, the Emperor Alexander transformed the swamps of the Neva into delicious promenades, which were soon followed by numerous elegant villas. M. Masson gives fine descriptions of the various magnificent gardens and conservatories. So again, they're doing this health. They're growing herbs for health, for tea, for different things. It's like, instead of these pharmaceutical factories run by people that are probably slaves in foreign countries and under circumstances that are terrible, these people were growing herbs instead. And there's no negative side effects of herbs in medicine, only in the chemical pharmas as their negative side effects. So again, fresh fruit, fresh foods, fresh herbs, all available for the people living in the cities. Compare that to the 5-minute cities that they want now. Disgusting. Among them is one of the island of Yalaguin, the private property of the Empress, which contains a beautiful park in English style. The Garden of Tavis was founded by Potemkin in 1780 and was designed by William Gould. The most striking part of this garden consists in its glass conservatories, very similar to what you see at the expositions, which are upwards of 2,000 feet in length. Cucumbers are used to a great extent in Russia, and glass conservatories are erected at much expense to protect them from the weather. It even makes me wonder if they're talking about glass conservatories like this, and glass inevitably turns to sand if it breaks. I wonder if there are glass conservatories all over the place where these sandy things were, where these sandy dunes and stuff areas are now. I wonder if those were once places that were beautiful, maybe had a ton of glass structures or sandstone structures, and then they all get reduced to dust, or it's just something that they covered up ancient cities with. That's a whole another story though. But here we go. The most striking part of the glass conservatories. Cucumbers are used in a great extent, and glass conservatories erected at much expense to protect them from the weather. Sorry, I read that before, but the Botanical Conservatory, or rather Palace of Glass, was commenced in 1845 and finished in 1847. It is supported on the north by an enormous wall to protect it from the north winds. 18 columns support the roof. It is nearly 400 feet long, nearly 80 feet high, and upwards of 100 in breadth. So again, St. Petersburg, they were doing all this stuff, and again, I wonder if they had any of these things in America, if some of those expositions with the great conservatories and glass things were made by Russians in a world where things were interconnected, and we had no idea because we are lied to. But either way, again, the need for gardens, the pleasure, the demand for gardens was definitely high, and again, they're using the food to eat, they're using the herbs to heal, they're doing all these things that we should be doing now, and we're not. And so again, that last building, it says, was made in 1847, and then shortly after that, I think, is when everyone seized control, and we never got it back. And hopefully we will at some point, but again, who knows how this world works. And then last but not least, there's another one. We're going backwards in time a little bit as this video started, and this is again from the Sunday Dispatch, March 16th, 1851, and it's about witchcraft in olden times. So again, I want to refer to certain movies, like I think there's one called Wizards, Ralph Bakshi, and then there's another one, I forget what it is, and maybe Fire and Ice, or one of those old movies where they talk about how magic has died, and they were getting rid of magic, and it was getting replaced by science and all these things, and science was so cool, but is it nowadays that we've seen what it's turned into? But again, I also feel that back in the day there was a use of magic, whether it's physics inevitably or whatever. They were science. It's all these different things where they were using the magic of the universe to do certain things and to help guide people and to help make life easier. And a lot of the times, I think this realm of doing things like this in the mind and beyond, with chemicals and different kind of who knows, psychedelics or other things like that, where we use portions of our body and mind that we're not supposed to, or that lay dormant for a long time. I think there is magic in that, and I think that magic was a very popular thing that, again, they had to come up with something like science, and they had to come up with a replacement for it that they could convince people was the right way, but it most likely wasn't. Like we know how they do everything nowadays. They convince you that something is terrible if they don't want you to have it. And so here we go. Take a listen to this article, Witchcraft in Olden Times. And again, think about what was going on, because again, they call it witchcraft, but is that what it is? Or is it just another four-letter word to make people hate and make people fear and make people do all these things? So there's no telling. And I do believe that there were people in the past that were utilizing magic. It was their religion. It was their science. It was the way of the past. And this is their way of getting rid of it, by persecuting the people, by turning it into a thing where you rat on your neighbors if they do these certain things. A way of people maybe were accessing this magic openly in the past during a beautiful time, and they were embracing it and things were incredible, and they wanted to get rid of it. So they wanted to turn on it. They wanted to make people fear it. They wanted to make people hate it. And it's so easy in a couple of generations to make people duped into doing anything that the past people may have thought differently about. So take a listen to this article, Witchcraft in Olden Times. During the 15th and 16th centuries, the belief in magic and witchcraft prevailed very generally in Europe. Such views were cherished even by many men of superior intellect and comparatively enlightened minds. Always keep that in mind. That's the line that they don't want you to know. That's the line that barely made it into this paper. And nowadays they'd be like fools and losers and racists are the only ones that ever did magic in the past, and they were blah. All right. That period may be regarded as the epoch of magicians, sorcerers, exorcists, and inquisitors. And again, 15th and 16th centuries, the time where they do not have much history about anything. And that was the period maybe regarded as the epoch of magicians, sorcerers, exorcists, and inquisitors. So what was happening? That was probably the peak of all that awesomeness. From the year 1484, the belief in magic began to play an important part in the affairs of Europe. And during upwards of 2 centuries, we read of frequent and most horrible state murders. During this, see, they pick the worst. You don't hear any of the good that might have happened from all that stuff. You only hear the worst. During this time, an infatuation, a monomania, seemed to have seized the people. Many pretend to exercise the art of witchcraft and had to pay a fearful penalty for their conduct. It is stated by Del Rio that in 3 months of the year 1515, 500 persons were executed at Geneva for holding converse with the evil spirits. Wonder what they were really doing. Upwards of 1,000 perished in this way in the Diocese of Como, and on average, 100 were executed there annually. And also keep in mind shamanism of Siberia and different things. Is that what they were taking down a lot of times? Because maybe that was spreading shamanism relating to different things, because that could be considered witchcraft to these people. But nowadays we look at it as something amazing. They're explorers of an entirely new realm of reality that nobody here knows, and most people would be absolutely terrified to explore. But these people can do it without any fear, and they do a great job at it, and they come back with gems. So keep that in mind. Witchcraft could be early shamanism, just with a different name. A rose by any other name, smell the same, I guess. In France, the number of executions is scarcely credible. We read of 1,200 persons being accused of dealing in forbidden things at one time, and the records of the Parliament of Bordeaux, Paris, and Rouen are filled with accounts of such trials. Again, trials of people dealing in forbidden things. So what characterizes a forbidden thing? It's kind of like what nowadays is characterized as hate speech online if you're in England, and soon enough America if she wins. But these things, like, well, who is to declare what a forbidden thing is, and what is the extent? And one person's forbidden thing might be another one's sacred experience or holy epiphany. So enlightenment, keep that in mind. Again, Germany too exhibited an equally lamentable picture of human credulity and persecution. At Würzburg in 1627, during a space of 2 months and a half, there were 29 successive auto da fes, on which occasion there were 157 persons accused of witchcraft burnt at the stake. It is established that during the 2 years from 1627 to 1629, nearly 10,000 persons were condemned to death in Germany for witchcraft and sorcery. It was at the commencement of the 18th century that the epidemic madness known as vampirism appeared in Germany. So again, you're hearing it from these people, and you're hearing it from a distant past described in a few words, a few sentences. You're hearing about the persecution and condemnation to death of over 10,000 people. And it's described in a sentence because they did the wrong thing, or they were practicing sorcery or vampirism or witchcraft. But what is that? What is that? Why is it so bad to these people that are the law? What were they really doing? Were they able to make things... Were they able to perform acts that would make people impressed and make people follow them, and they wanted to stop that and dead in its tracks? Were they capable of ancient powers and ancient skills that they did not want to continue in the human species? They did not want people teaching these things. I'm sure a lot of these people, if they were practicing and they were researching into this phenomena, most likely had books and different maybe artworks even describing things. And I'm sure every one of those was burnt and destroyed and absolutely forbidden. So what were they hiding again? Because it's only one word that you hear about: witchcraft. That could be anything, especially when it's in a newspaper. So keep all of these things in mind. From the corpses on the highways that are just all over the place, 40,000 just random people dead on highways, curious inventions that people are taking credit for during this post-reset era that have origins potentially thousands of years ago, but at least 100 plus years ago. And then St. Petersburg gardens, people using beauty, using food, valuing food, herbs, all these things above all, and sharing them. The county and cities growing products, tending to gardens that the people can come and pluck and eat and benefit from. What a world that is, and what an immaculate, astonishingly different world it is from now. And again, they're just hints of the perfection that existed at one point, in the normalcy that existed at one point, and we've just been in the nonsense stuff ever since. And so it really helps, I feel, to get a grip on these things and re-examine and reverse engineer the articles to just try and decipher what the old school reality was, and what the old world magic really was, because they definitely had magic. They definitely did everything they could to crush it. They did everything they could to crush the health of the people. They did everything they could to make people think that the world was nothing before, and they're the smartest, and the inventions are coming from them, and all these things. You live in the prime time of civilization. All these inventions are here at your disposal. It's so convenient. You have so much time to do free stuff, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, the ancient world, we have no idea of the cycles that they've gone through, how many ups and downs they've had, how many advancements they've had, how many anythings they've had. So again, but you can bet whatever they tell you, whatever they teach you, whatever they really want to hammer into your head, you need to look the other way and think about it in a different light. So that's what this is all about, a huge collection of random stuff. If you are still here at this point, thank you for listening, and I hope you liked this collection of ideas, theories, thoughts, and visions. So bless you all from SaveEarth.us and artofdino.com.